Who's good?
Oh, there it is.
Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to the stream. I'm glad you guys were able to show up. We're going to be talking about Atheism Plus today and how it relates, or some of the parallels between it and what we're seeing in Gamergate with the people on the oppositional side. Kind of a similar mentality, similar tactics, and a similar situation that happened where you had a group of individuals show up into a community and start, I guess the best way of putting it is shitting it up by bringing in outside rhetoric and baggage that didn't really belong or fit with the community they were joining. Today I have a couple of guests. I've got Justicar and I've got Thunderfoot. Oh, sorry, my audio is kicking through on me here. That was my fault. I'm sorry about that. We have guests today, Justicar and Thunderfoot, both of who you can see on YouTube. I've got their information in the description if you want to check that out on Twitter or on YouTube. But I wanted to start it out for the people watching because I don't know how familiar. It's been brought up before when we're kind of talking about co-opting and gaming and SJWs and social justice and this kind of rhetoric. Atheism Plus has been brought up before as an example of where this kind of happened in the atheist community. And so I wanted to, I guess the first question I wanted to ask you guys is, what exactly happened? What was the first noticeable instance that either one of you had seen where you knew something weird was coming, that the Atheism Plus was going to be different?
These are the nicest people you're ever going to meet. They showed up, and I think they're completely reasonable. I don't know what your problem is, sir.
Oh, is that right? I'm completely the wrong idea, do I?
Yeah.
So, actually, let me just throw in, have either of you come across Mikeru's law?
Say that again?
Mikeru's law.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Is that as any progressive movement gains popularity, the probability of a feminist organization coming in and co-opting it to make it all about their vagina approaches 1.
Is that would you say that's a fair statement in regards to what happened with the atheism?
So, by my reckoning, this is the 3rd time that I've seen this. First time was with atheism. With the it ended really with Atheism Plus. That once they proposed Atheism Plus, that was really the end of it. Then it happened with the Occupy movement, and now it's basically happening again with gaming. But of course, the gaming population is much bigger than the atheist population. I mean, if you just want a ballpark number, maybe 10% of the people in America are atheists or something, but maybe 50% of them are gamers of one sort or another. And the idea that you can actually sort of characterize such a diverse group of people as having, almost any identifier. The idea that these are all misogynists in gaming is almost a surreal proposal.
No, it is extraordinarily insane, really, when you kind of look at it. And I know too, and I think for a lot of the Gamergate people, some of them kind of know what happened, but they don't really understand the backstory of it. They get at the idea that this group of people kind of showed up and demanded certain things and changed the way the community behaved, and were extraordinarily vitriolic and just sort of cruel and mean, and I guess ruined how things were. And we're kind of seeing a similar thing in gaming right now that's going on, especially with this media blitz that's taking place. And so I thought it would be good to kind of get a perspective of people who saw it take place, saw it happen to a community they were a part of, and kind of watch this unfold. Jessica, what aside from them being wonderful people, what I guess what was your first clue that something awkward might be going on? It was a little different than what you might expect.
Well, the whole thing started with a very vicious invitation to coffee, and I thought that was a little.
Actually, not entirely. It did start a little before then. It started with Rebecca Watson deciding that there was all this harassment going on at these atheist events.
Oh, right, she gave that speech.
Which, to a heart, what they call harassment is what you would normally call, in say a nightclub, socializing. That was what they were calling harassment. You know, people were coming up to me and asking me, uh, uh, hitting on me in a bar, and it's like, well, yeah, you're in a sort of social place where people do that, and you're at a conference. I mean, this is, I would have said, uh, background noise in that sort of venue. But no, according to her, this was actually sexism and misogyny, which leads us to the incident in the elevator, Justica.
Yes. Okay, she had given a speech earlier in the day. Well, actually, it really started with the Steph McGraw bit. But anyway, she gave a speech about all kinds of horrible people approaching her and whatnot. And apparently in the speech, or the lecture, she calls them lectures. Anyway, the former street magician's giving lectures. Anywho, yeah, she's not an academic, but she gives lectures. So after she'd given the speech about how people should conform their conduct to certain societal norms that she expects, defer to her sensitivities, after about 8 or 9, 7 hours, something like that, of drinking in a bar with people, some guy apparently propositioned her to go to his room to have coffee, which may or may not be the secret code for sex. A lot of people say that it's that it is. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked.
No, that's fine.
And it was the fact that he had invited her to his room for coffee was problematic, particularly given that she'd given a speech earlier in the day. And so what I wanted to know was, well, was the guy who propositioned her actually an attendee at that speech? Was he in her hearing when she was speaking? Because it's not reasonable to think just because you've given a speech the entire world has heard it. And more importantly, I wanted to know if there's any evidence that this coffee inviter actually existed, because all the pictures I saw of the bar before she left, she's unable to point out who the bad man is. But then the response to that was, well, she suffers from prosopagnosia, so she can't identify him. Prosopagnosia is a facial blindness. You can't recognize people by their faces. I'm like,
And this medical.
I get that as well when I'm blind drunk at 4 o'clock in the morning.
That's one hell of an excuse to pull out for not being able to recognize an individual.
yeah, but apparently she can recognize from across the room Richard Dawkins, James Randi, the MythBusters, the famous people she can recognize straight away.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah, they probably wear signs.
And so was this gentleman had asked her for coffee, and she had found that to be offensive in some way?
Oh, threatening.
Threatening.
Well, first it was just he invited her coffee, but then as the story, that wasn't quite dramatic enough, it had to be escalated. He cornered her in the elevator. And I was like, oh, okay, that 8 seconds you had in the elevator from hell, I'm so sorry that happened to you. How did you manage to pick up and survive? But so what she did with this potential rapist in the hotel is, of course, she went straight to security to let them know to be on the lookout for the guy, so any other women wouldn't have to suffer the indignity of being invited to beverages. No, instead what she did, she went to bed and went to sleep and made a YouTube video about it about a few days later. Because that's what I would do if I thought there were a stalker rapist in the building. I would, just go about my merry way.
That is surprising, the whole mentality of, here's this horrific event that happened, I need to immediately go on social media to discuss it, rather than take appropriate steps, I guess. So
yeah, this is the hallmark of these people. The one place, the one group of people that they won't go tell this story to would be the people who are going to investigate it, namely the police.
Really? And so this happens, right? Because I think most people have kind of heard this. She got asked out to beverages in an elevator and found this to be horrific. Now, the follow-up to that is, was it Richard Dawkins had spoken on this and ended up getting attacked quite a bit for it, didn't
he? Yeah, he actually, Richard Dawkins is known for many things. Being overly polite is
not at the top of the list.
He's not overtly rude. He's not like, hey, you're fucking ugly, you bastard. But he has a biting wit about him. And he wrote a letter titled "Dear Muslima." It's like, oh, listen here, ladies in the Middle East. Yes, I know your genitals were hacked off, and you have to walk around in what Bill Maher calls the beekeeper outfit.
Mm-hmm.
But please think of the indignity that your American sisters have to suffer. I heard of one just the other day, going by the name Skepchick, who was invited to coffee in an elevator. I'm not kidding, it really happened. That man actually did ask her to coffee, and she said no, and he took no for an answer, and that was the end of the story. So please think of your American sisters. Essentially pointing out that this is a first world problem where, oh my God,
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
My cookie is so large I can't dip it into my milk. Oh, help.
And so what was the reaction he got to that?
Naturally, everyone saw the eminent wisdom of what he had said and said, you know, he has a point here, a little something about perspective. Or, I'm sorry, why do you hate women, Richard Dawkins?
And this became I guess, a talking point, didn't it, for conversations going forward, especially in regards to Dawkins in relation to the elevator incident. They dubbed it Elevator Gate, didn't they?
Yes, Elevator Gate. Yeah, who was the first person? I don't know who the first person to write a response to it was, but Black Hag was first among them. And she actually wrote the article before she was sure that it was actually Richard Dawkins who wrote it. And she had to do an edit to that original post, saying it has now been confirmed some hours later that it was actually Richard Dawkins.
Maybe a little background on who the hell Black Hag is.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Founder.
So she had her 15 minutes of fame with something called Boobquake. Which is there were these people in the Muslim world who had said this earthquake was punishment for all these sinful women going around showing off their bodies. You know, that it's basically boobs caused earthquakes, which is obviously bloody stupid. And so
I know they're called knockers.
They did some sort of protest where they all went around in bikinis to see if it would. It was something along those lines, and that actually got her on the Colbert Report, if I remember rightly.
Really?
I think so.
Oh, man.
Yeah, essentially, there was a get-together in a park or something, and it was essentially show as much of your tits as you can legally get away with, and we'll see if it causes an earthquake. And
the scientific method. Yeah.
Which was, you know, that is the sarcasm of that is what makes it so good.
Of course, it's great.
And then, if I remember rightly, at a later date, she then started complaining that people were objectifying her.
Yes.
And it's like, so let me get this straight. You took off all of your clothes and walked around in the park, and now you're worried that people are judging you on that.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways of describing this was that if you don't want to be thought as a person who eats meat, if you want to be thought of as a vegetarian, you should probably stop eating Big Macs in front of people. If you're going to go in public and show your hoo-ha and your he this and your she that, don't complain when people accept the invitation and look at you and start talking about it.
It should also be mentioned, actually now while I think about it, that Rebecca Watson, one of the early things that actually put her on the radar was the nude calendar.
Yes.
So what was the nude calendar exactly for people listening?
It was meant to be a fundraiser for, I think, the JREF, who later became the devil incarnate as far as the feminists were concerned. But at the time, they were on the same team, and so they took all their clothes off. They made a calendar, and they sold the calendar and gave the profits to the James Randi Educational Foundation. And this is the same woman who years later starts coming up with all this, objectification of women, yada yada yada. So,
and so we have the elevator incident, elevator gate, because I think one of the things too that confuses people, or at least people unfamiliar with it, is they hear Atheism Plus, but they don't really have like a timeline. So they hear about events like you've got Elevator Gate and a few others. When did the name start getting pushed around, or when did the formation of the concept of what it was going to be, when did that start getting pitched? Was it after Elevator Gate? Was it during it? Before it?
It was after Elevator Gate. Now it's important to remember that the logo for Atheism Plus, actually that was something Richard Dawkins, similar to it, had done some time before that, if I recall correctly. And so they adopted this new label that they came up with totally on their own. And it was going to be atheism plus a bunch of other propositions, not sexual propositions, of course, because
that would be too problematic.
yes, that's one of their buzzwords, problematic.
Oh, they love it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to challenge that assumption. Anyway, and it was essentially after they went down this list of all the things they want to pack into atheism without changing the definition of atheism, of course.
And if I remember rightly, it was a list of 5 things. Where atheists plus we stand up for women's rights. Then it was black people's rights or minorities, gay people, trans people. And then last of the pile, number 5 of 5, is we are atheists plus we advocate rational thinking, and it's like, for fuck's sake, haven't you got that completely arse backwards? In fact, it's even more arse backwards than that, because a lot of people would say that they are atheists because they are rationalists. In other words, I am an atheist because that is a conclusion that you come to from being a rationalist, right? A lot of people would argue it that way. And so to say I'm an atheist, therefore I believe in rationality, is just really arse backwards.
It was inverted. They flipped it around on everybody.
Yeah, well, for them, atheism is not the conclusion of a line of reasoning. It's actually a starting point for an argument. And I'm like, no. You come to decisions about what is a true what do you think is a true model of the universe based on an analysis of the information that you have, and you reach. In my case, I reached the conclusion there's not a sufficient reason to believe that there exists a God. From that, nothing else follows. You can be an atheist and a complete whack job. I mean, look at the Raelians. You know who they are, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're a UFO cult essentially. They're atheists, complete whack jobs, but they're atheists. And they also had kindness to animals in there somewhere.
In their list of what an atheist plus was?
Yes. Now, this is in no sense whatever changing the definition of atheism, which last I checked dealt with what you think is true about the proposition that there exists at least one God. So without changing that definition, atheism now has all these other things, and they call that atheism plus. The founder of that is Black Hag, Jennifer McCrite, rhymes with wrong. I don't. Did she last?
Also known as Miss Boobquake.
Miss Boobquake.
I'm gonna get some big noise here in a minute. I'm gonna mute my microphone.
Okay, that's fine. Well, while you're muted, that kind of brings us into, was it Richard Carrier that had given the speech at the AA? Is that what intellectual artillery is what they referred to it as? That was the.
No, he describes himself as the intellectual artillery, which is. I mean, how vain do you have to be to describe yourself as the intellectual artillery? Even if it were true, which of course it's not, but even if it were true, it's like, my God, put your, can't you, dim your ego down a bit for a.
Well, after he got his 5th Nobel Prize, I think he's entitled to refer to himself that way.
Is that right? He's earned that right, has he?
Yeah, well, yeah, all of his academic work is self-published, isn't it?
In terms of even calling himself an academic would be. I think technically he does have a PhD. Does he? I can't remember. Now he calls himself doctor, but I'm not quite sure what the hell he's a doctor of. But for certain, in terms of being a research active or anything like that, it's a complete non-starter. So.
And yeah, because I think people have seen, or at least a fair amount of people had seen, I believe it was his speech at the American Atheist Convention in 2013. So was he putting forward the bullet points of what Atheism Plus was? Was he helping to define it? What was his role, kind of, as this went through Thunderfoot? Like, what do you see as his role as? In this?
So the way that it basically went is, first of all, you had Elevator Gate. And this really polarized the community. In that beforehand, it had been essentially one contiguous group, but this became a sort of almost single-issue politics thing. You were either pro Elevator Gate or anti. And then the people who were...
Wait, that's not accurate. You're either pro-atheism plus or you hate women, you rapist.
Oh no, no, it was better than that. You were cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Oh,
Oh,
right, right, right.
Chuds. Is
Floods.
that, is that what they referred to everybody as?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and in that sense, the parallels are stunning between Gamergate and Elevator Gate. In that, first of all, came the polarizing issue, and then you had the people like Carrier, who said, the time has come for us to throw off all of these sick misogynists, and we will have a new third glorious age of rationality and enlightenment that will stem from atheism plus, which really didn't even make it past the end of the week before it was dead in the water. Which is why, you mentioned this in one of your videos, that with Gamergate they're maybe thinking of calling themselves players rather than gamers or something.
Oh, they wanted a new moniker. One of the joke images that went around when this rumor first started was they were going to call it Gaming Plus or Gamer Plus because everybody was referring back to Atheism Plus. They kind of saw what was going on, and then it became, well, let's refer to them as players instead of gamers. Because we have to differentiate. You can't just be a gamer if you play video games. You have to be morally right and not a misogynist and not racist, sexist, transphobic, anti-social justice. Any word they could throw at you, really.
yeah.
And
But
go.
Atheism Plus styled itself as the third wave of atheism, with Richard Dawkins, the four horsemen of the counter-apocalypse being the second wave. So they followed up Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Dan Dennett with Richard Intellectual Artillery Carrier, Jennifer McCreight, who quit after about 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
That was the most hilarious thing of all.
No,
So she founds Atheism Plus, this great new wave. She declares on her blog that, this is the death throes of the old white patriarchal misogyny atheism, and now we're going to have this new great age of equality and the such like, and it lasted, like you were saying, quite literally a week before she said, no, we've lost. And when you abandon your own movement within about a week, that gives you some idea of how much support it had.
And this was one of their new third wave atheism four horsemen. This was one of their top people, kind of up there with the intellectual artillery of Carrier.
That was the founder of Atheism Plus.
She's the one who conceptualized it.
The founder quit after 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's about right, yeah.
That's insane. And why did people stick with it if they pulled up their stakes and got the hell out of Dodge?
Oh, well, this is like asking why people stand in front of a wall, put prayers in it, and like bob their heads back and forth. I don't know why people do crazy things; they just do. But I was watching an interview with Richard Carrier a while back about Atheism Plus, how he's a big supporter of it, the intellectual blah 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 blah. And then the guy asked him what the actual forums where the hub of it is. He goes, "Oh, I don't know. I've never actually posted there."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love this.
I've seen that interview as well, and it's, you just facepalm. What else can you do?
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine like Richard Dawkins, the so-called Pope of atheism, being like, when they ask him what's it like, oh, I don't know. I don't talk to atheists. I don't go to any meetings. I don't really have anything to do with it. It's really it's a sinecure, really.
Yeah, when the man who claims to be the intellectual artillery for a movement doesn't know what the hell's going on with it.
Yeah, he's never made an account with them. He doesn't go over there and talk. Now, have you actually been there, Internet Aristocrat?
No, I've not. I watched kind of all of this unfolding from my perspective, just kind of unfolding from the sidelines, watching this take place, and just finding it just unreal. Watching what was happening, it just didn't make sense to me what the point of Atheism Plus was, who these people were, and there always seemed to be a video coming out where specific, it started to become a certain group of people. Always seemed to be stirring shit. Watson was a name that came up a lot. Myers was a name that came up a lot, it seemed. And it was just, I never had a chance to personally see it, though, no.
You asked me, like, what was the first thing that let me know that something's not quite right? I don't know what the very first thing was, but one of them was reading some of the posts over there, and one of them was, I can't do this with a straight face.
It was that good, was it?
Oh God. Everyone
Actually,
who,
this is one of the upsides, is these people do provide an awful lot of lulls.
yeah, and it's free. You don't have to pay for it. But one of them was, you want to talk about the oppression Olympics. One of them was about someone being reprimanded by a moderator for asking in a thread if he or she could have a hug.
They got reprimanded for asking for a hug.
Yes, because that was hijacking someone else's conversation about needing a hug.
And this is all done with a straight face. These aren't people just
All
joking.
done with a straight... Well, I mean, this is the other thing, is... You know what Poe's law is, yeah?
I was going to say, this is
Yep.
Poe's law.
That's exactly it. I mean, you just can't tell the fucking crazy from the people just pretending to be crazy.
Yeah, so the person responds to the moderator threat by saying, you know, if this isn't a community where I'm entitled to a hug when I feel like I need one, then I'm not sure this is the place for me.
And so was this kind of the mentality of their communities, was kind of a literal hug box kind of thing, where everybody's feelings needed to be put first and foremost before anything else, any rationality, any facts, anything like that.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a safe space. Now, now I did one video, and
By which they mean your free speech ends where my feelings begin.
yes, or where one of the curious things is it's like women who advocate for various work positions, and then you ask them, "Are you interested in this position?" They say, "Well, no." Okay. It's not even that someone's feelings are hurt; it's that some potential person, some hypothetical person in the future might be born whose feelings might possibly be hurt. Therefore, you shouldn't say that. And
That's insane.
it really is. Your Tumblrisms, which those are excellent, by the way, especially the one about non-Euclidean
Seconded.
non-Euclidean emotions. Really, that cracked my shit up.
Oh, some of the stuff they come up with is just phenomenal. It's just so crazy.
By the way, what kind? I don't know if the answer ever came out on this. What kind of wood are you?
Oh God, I think of myself as oak would be what I'd go with. That's oppressive, I'm sure, to somebody.
Yeah, that sounds a little too masculine, sir.
It does. I need to check my privilege and offer hugs to people that feel safe with it, so it's not too problematic when I tell them
Oh,
this.
that's another thing. You can't just offer a freestanding hug to someone. You have to make sure that you have the person's online consent to your online hug. Otherwise, it's
Well, this fund, this kind of opens up another subject. This found its way into certain conventions, didn't it? Where they wanted to draw up essentially a list of behavior.
Not only that, they've done it.
They have,
Oh.
so they've implemented it.
yes.
Oh, and it's actually there in black and white in the conference policy that yes means yes, no means no, and maybe means no. To which, I mean, what else can you say? But did these people ever get through puberty? Because the first thing that you realize when you go sort of dating or whatever is virtually all communication about sex, dating, hooking up, all that sort of thing is done through non-verbal communication. You know, eye contact, touching, you know, often fairly subtle things, you know, touching arms, that sort of thing.
Right, like
Physical cues.
someone's pussy or
Yeah,
something.
and you know, there are all sorts of games that go on when people are courting like this.
Mhm.
And, you know, sometimes no does mean yes, sometimes yes does mean no.
Yeah,
And,
my safe word is is deeper.
Is that the one you go with? To be, that's when they know, is it?
My safe word is, oh yes, please more. Oh, that's so confusing. No, but that conference policy, you need to remember, Thunderfoot. At the same time they were coming up with that, they were handing out stuffed animals that said, "I'm vaccinated, hug me."
so isn't that rape if you do it without the stuffed animal's consent?
Well, weren't there more policies though? I mean, they had essentially turned something that was a convention for people in the atheist community to get together and just have fun, bullshit around, have some speakers, and just a group event like you'd see at a gaming convention. But they changed it into something where we have, like, if I remember right from watching different videos and hearing kind of people speak on this, I didn't know they implemented are still doing it, I guess, but it was it was a list of how you can behave, what can be sold there, what words are acceptable, you know, what you agree to, and it was like very legalese and it seemed to be geared towards the notion that if you were an atheist and you were going to a convention, you had to be told these things because you couldn't behave otherwise. This was expected. You were going to be like that.
How can
Well,
you
I mean, this is where it just gets so capitally stupid. The
refund policy.
Oh yeah, they refuse to give you a refund to a. This is actually written in the conference policy that you will get expelled from the conference and won't get a refund if you violate the policies, even though it's a free conference.
So it costs no money, but no refunds, huh?
Yeah, and
why not just give them a double your money back?
That's it. That's
even better. Yeah, but this is the thing that. When you put people in charge where their only tangible skill is that they're a professional victim, this is the sort of level of incompetence you're going to get. Right?
Oh, exactly.
So at one of these conferences, they actually had a policy about, I didn't think the policy was no shooting, but they did have a list of things that you should do if there was a conference shooting. It's like, but in that very same conference policy, there was not something that says that rape is against the conference policy.
So they forgot to cover that one.
Oh, absolutely. So there was a sort of no shooting policy, but not a no raping policy.
Well, maybe by shooting they meant something other than firearms.
It seems so surreal that this needed to be put in black and white. How did people respond to this? Was there, did people, I guess as this went on, did people start to think, God, this is insane what these people are doing. This is getting nutty.
I've got to admit, once we got past Elevator Gate, I sort of, I went my own way from this crowd because the way that I saw it is these were a bunch of losers who were never actually going to achieve anything. And
well, no, before that, you went right into the hive mind.
Oh yeah, there was my little punch out with Free Thought Blogs, who then tried to, what was it, drive me out of the community and have me forever be a pariah.
Yeah, but isn't your just for your channel, isn't your viewership larger than their entire network?
I think that's about right. That's about
more traffic than all of them put together, and they're going to drive him out.
Well, and these are the people that are kind of carrying the cause, so to speak. But it seems like they don't have a large following. They're just very loud. Would that be fair to say? A vocal minority that are kind of stomping their feet to demand certain things.
Which is again, it's almost verbatim Gamergate, and again verbatim, they seem to have friends in real journalism. Rebecca Watson had several of these things where, even though within the actual atheist community herself, her name was essentially mud, and she would still get these relatively high-profile articles in things like Slate. And, of course, for people like you, me, and everyone else here, we knew what the score was. But to Joe Public, who doesn't know any of the background, all of a sudden you get this article on Slate saying how terribly misogynistic the atheist community is. That's the only information I have, and like that, I think it's very similar to Gamergate. Is that you have all of these what was initially just gaming press, who was so incredibly detached from reality and biased, it's not true. But then it seems to have actually moved over to the mainstream media, who also seem to have just taken the gaming press at their word, which, if you think about it, is just so stupid. You have a segment of the press that's being accused of being corrupt, and you take them at their word.
It's surreal, isn't it? And that's one of the things I think is really interesting is you really do have a lot of parallels between kind of what happened with Atheism Plus and what's going on in Gamergate. You have professional victims who create a major drama around themselves, and then deflect any criticism by saying, no, it's the community that's the problem. You guys are all horrible and misogynistic, and then the journalists come in and they're just kind of parroting what's being said. How did the atheist community? It's I guess it's a large thing to ask somebody to speak for, but how did the atheist community in general, not just like Joe Public, but the people that were kind of tuned in and kind of knew a little bit of what was going on, how did they react to Atheism Plus? Was it a slow kind of like realization, or were they like, holy shit, this is crazy,
Yeah.
let's back off?
Atheism Plus was essentially dead on arrival, and the reason it was dead on arrival is basically because of Carrier, who really did frame this. He wrote this blog post which was, this is the new glorious age of atheism where we shed the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers and we will be righteous, pure, and honorable, and this is a black and white issue. It's us versus them. You can't have... he basically made it a binary choice, and oddly enough, it turns out that if you want to make an issue which has a lot of grey in it, either black and white, people will just call bullshit on you. It's like, I might not entirely agree with one or the other, but I'm certainly not going to put my ex next to the guy who is saying you're either with us or against us.
Yeah, and more than that, it wasn't simply enough that you had to agree with their principles at the outset. You had to agree with the label. You had to label yourself, so that way they could identify, oh, you don't identify as Atheism Plus, therefore you're not good enough to be in the community.
And you will be shunned. We won't have you invited to... It was really totalitarian stuff. You won't be allowed to come to conferences. We won't work with you. We'll call you out in public, which is, again, very much Gamergate. That they will basically throw mud at you in public if you disagree with them. Again, very much like Gamergate. And this is why I think, if we didn't have YouTube, we would be fairly screwed at this point. Because
it does feel like that, yeah.
Of all the venues, YouTube is really almost the last bastion where we have... we actually have, if you like, a direct voice. If we didn't have that, who else is there? The gaming press is essentially corrupt from the inside out. A load of these actual forums have actually sort of shut down all conversation about this.
Oh, yeah, it's been silenced everywhere. I think one of the other interesting things, I don't know how much profiteering went on with Atheism Plus. What's going on in Gamergate is we've got all these people, these professional victims that are using the press and calling the community horrible, but they're making a lot of money doing nothing. They're getting donations, they're getting tips, they're getting Patreon cash just for saying, I'm horribly oppressed, everybody be a Gamer Plus. Did that happen in Atheism Plus? Were they trying to make money doing this as well?
Yes. So Rebecca Watson, certainly, when she did her, Patreon thing, it was, I'm a victim and I'm still going to do this. I think that's right. I think if you actually watch her, support me video, that's basically it. And Sarkeesian does basically the same thing. That all these talks that she's supposedly giving about the sexist representation of women in games is basically the same talk again and again, and it's exactly the same thing that she did with her TED Talk years ago. She turns up and talks about how hard it is to be Anita Sarkeesian, and if you've ever been an oppressed woman or a woman who has felt bad, then you need to start supporting me.
Really?
That seems to be very much the pitch that they go for.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
Now, don't forget the fake jewelry nonsense.
What was that exactly? The fake jewelry? Is this the convention thing?
Yeah. It's who can sell jewelry. They're called Surly Ramic. She makes ceramic kind of things that have like pro-science or pro-atheist stuff on it. And she was mightily upset that people who disagreed with her were showing up at conferences wearing knockoffs of Surly Ramics, mocking her, and the nonsensical stuff and pushing. And so she I can't remember where she did an interview. Was it with oh my God, the lacrosse rape trial? What's that nut job?
Oh, Marcotte.
Yes,
Marcotte. There we go.
She did an interview with Amanda Marcotte, And she's like, look, we're not asking for anything unreasonable. We just want sensible policies, which, that's good language. We want sensible policies. And then she describes what she wants.
Which was no offensive speech, which is kind of hard in an atheist conference, seeing as half of what they do there is try and piss off religious people. And then, we want no offensive T-shirts and no fake jewelry.
And on that same list was no grabbing people's asses without their permission. Nothing unreasonable. Okay. I can agree with the last one. Sure, don't go around like rubbing people's genitals and stuff. I'm with you there. But it's first of all, I don't know what fake jewelry is, but anyway.
So basically, what they meant by fake jewelry is
I know what she means, but I don't know what the concept of fake jewelry is. I mean, what's real jewelry?
Yeah, how does one define that? Yeah.
The decoration. Don't use fake decorations. Oh, no, these are sincere. Yeah. But anyway, one of the things they want to do is to make sure that it doesn't really matter what you believe, it's what you say. And so long as you say the right words, you're in like the cult. I'm sorry, the group. And on the point of delusional, one of the things that you'll notice about the people who cry the most about how rapified the whole world is, they tend to be like the ugliest women you'll find. And it's like you're trying to upplay your sexual market value. You're not satisfied that you're below average. And so what you need to do, like Rebecca Watson does when she goes around saying that one of the things that she gets asked all the time by men is for them to show them her pretty smile. Have you seen her?
Yes, I've seen Rebecca Watson.
No one has ever asked to see her pretty smile, I assure you.
Especially if you see what her teeth are like, yeah.
Yeah, she's got, like, all the teeth are, like, just screaming to be in front. No, me first! No, me! Oh, God, get out of the way! She's got fucked up teeth. And whenever she does an accent of people who want to come talk to her, it always sounds like a black guy. Yo, baby, yo! Anyway, like, Mike Root put it best, like from a Mandingo kind of affectation. And also on the delusional bit about not being able to be comfortable with who they are, is they think that they have a sense of humor, but they don't. Thunderfoot did a video on this, and so did Pony Slay Station. His was short and funny. And it was a video that Rebecca Watson did about a cancer charity, I think it was. And she starts it off by saying essentially, fuck you to the men in the atheist community who, how did it go?
I'm not quite sure which one you're talking about.
She starts off with their balls tuck up inside them and form what some people call a man.
Oh, that! Good God! I mean, she basically
to get money for
it was a video to raise money for charity, and she basically starts off by saying all the atheist men are dicks. And no qualifiers, nothing. It's just like...
No, this is what it was. If an atheist on YouTube goes too long without calling a woman a cunt, his balls will tuck up inside him and form what some people call a mangina.
Oh, and this was Watson doing this. I've seen this video.
Yeah. Pony Slay Station has a funny one where we had a little back and forth about it. Thunderfoot has one. And she thinks that that's a joke. And she's like, most people got it. When you go look at the like to dislike ratio, it's like apparently most people didn't like it.
Well, and have you noticed, this is one of the I guess, the trends that I noticed in the Gamergate opposition, or these people that are doing it right now in gaming. They want to treat people like infants. They want them to basically toe the line and behave, and they talk down to them. Was that kind of a big thing in Atheism Plus? Was everybody treated like they were idiots and everything had to be explained because you just couldn't behave otherwise?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the thing that really pissed me off about all these sort of conference policies is... I don't want to go to a conference to be treated like a 12-year-old. I don't want the conferences that I go to be essentially expensive daycare. I want to be treated. I want at least as many rights as I have as when I go out in the evening.
Well, yeah. And these people, too, at least from what I remember seeing, and I think you both would have better perspectives on this, and Gamergate, what we've seen is the people that do end up speaking out against them, the people that go against the narratives that are kind of put forward by people like Zoe Quinn or Brianna Wu, are attacked. They're attacked quite brutally. Some people, get threatened to be doxxed or have their account shut down, or they're just attacked and called the worst things in the world. Was there that kind of reaction from the Atheism Plus group? Like, if you dare to speak out against us, we are going to smear you in every imaginable way.
Absolutely, and let me just inject here that I actually joined something called Free Thought Blogs, which is this is essentially the mecca for the social justice warriors in atheism. Now, why did I join them? Well, I just didn't know at the time. Okay, I should have read up more about it. But it should then be stated that I lasted, I think, 10 days there. It was something like that. It was incredibly short. And that was based on a few things. The first of all is they also had this back channel, very much like this gaming journalism mailing list. Yeah, it's exactly what it was. It's just a mailing list. And they signed me up to that mailing list, and it was just the most petty bitching about settling scores and all this sort of shit. And almost instantly, there was as much going out on that back channel as there was going out on the blog. And if these people have got nothing better to do than this, then no organization that spends this much time in petty bitching will ever achieve anything, right? Because that's what they were spending all their time doing. Anyway, so it turns out that they didn't realize they'd signed me up to this thing, and one of the things that they're bitching about is me, because them being the wonderful researchers that they were, thought I was the amazing atheist.
So wait, they put you on
I didn't know this.
They put you on a mailing list talking about yourself, thinking you were somebody else entirely.
Exactly.
How ridiculous! Oh, God.
And I still have it, so I just get around to reading some of this, and I put up a reply basically saying they'd accused me of absolutely everything: racism, sexism, misogynist, pro-rape, all this sort of shit. And it's like, I just went on, look, everything that I've ever done's online. Just show me where I've said these things. And then comes forward all these apologies, including Richard Carrier, who apologized and told me that he thought he had got me confused with the Amazing Atheist. And it's like, you fuck-ups, you world-class fuck-ups. Anyway, so after that, I put up my post about how I thought they were going down the wrong road with all this sort of misogyny stuff and all these conference policies, and that was basically the end of it. They dogpiled me and threw me off about a week later. Now, the bizarre thing is that I actually was still able to read their mailing list even after they thought they'd thrown it off me, after they thought that they'd thrown me off the mailing list. And so I also got to see them doing all this conspiring how they were going to destroy me.
How dumb are these people? Jeez.
World-class dumb. Yeah. And so I have all these sort of mails where they're conspiring about how, guess what? They're all going to release their blogs on the same day to utterly destroy me. And not only that, how they want me made a pariah such that no one in the atheist they wanted me destroyed. A pariah who will be shunned by this is almost verbatim what they were writing. A pariah who will never be sort of talked to or taken seriously by anyone ever again.
And that's so eerily similar, too. I mean, you're talking about a coordinated, we're going to all release blogs talking about this at the same time.
When I saw all that stuff about the 20 articles, whatever, announcing the game is dead on the same day, I was just getting so much deja vu over that. And the more so seeing as it was completely detached from reality. So there are various sites that allow you to track, whether you get more or less subscribers, that sort of thing. And this entire attempt from Free Thought Blogs to try and destroy me.
100.
Yeah, I lost about 300 subscribers or something, which was out of, at the time, I think, 150,000.
So that was your death knell, then? They really got you.
That was my death knell, and now it's up to about 1/3 of a million or something. So their aspirations just completely outweigh their operational ability. And again, this seems to be the way it goes with Gamergate, is they have the aspirations that they're just going to declare gaming to be dead, just like Atheism Plus decided that atheism was dead, and now we need a new wave. And what happened? You know, well, where was the actual change? I mean, all I see that's changed is you've now actually generated a bunch of gamers who are now actually capitally pissed off that there they were just happily being gamers from every stripe. You know, you had women, gays, trans. The gaming demographic transcends all of these boundaries, right? To greater and lesser extent. And now all these people are basically being told, oh no, the gamers are dead. They're all misogynists.
It's a several billion dollar, an industry that generates several billion dollars a year from people is dead.
Yeah, it's completely buried. Yep.
So you get 100 people, and they will pretend as though they are the representative sample of the fucking universe. On the gay issue, for those people who don't know, and this might come as a surprise to some of you ladies out there, I'm gay. One of the things that started right at the beginning of Elevator Gate was PZ Meyer said to me, and he knew, or should have known because we'd talked about it, that I'm gay. And he said, the only reason that you have a problem with what Rebecca Watson says is so that way you won't feel uncomfortable. You'll feel like you're entitled to corner women in various rooms and hit on them. I'm like, you have fucking jumped the shark. For one, even if I were straight, I was like, for one, even if I were straight, look at me. There is no way in hell I would hit on a Rebecca Watson. I'm way out of her league. And two, I'm a big old fucking Peter Puffer, dude. Like, ugh. There's the amount of alcohol required for a Rebecca Watson to become attractive is the exact amount that would be required to make sure that I couldn't have sex.
Well, no, I mean, we heard Thunderfoot's kind of the reaction he got. Now, you had made videos, too, kind of talking about the stuff going on. Did you end up getting a lot of shit thrown your way, Justicar, when you started talking about it?
I get the two extremes. One, the people who are just dyed in the wool. Every rude word is an injury to all women for all time, even women who won't exist for thousands of years. And all women who are dead, it travels backwards through time. It hurts them somehow. And then I get people who are like, look, you were very strident. I get called that a bit in the beginning, but when you get past my rebarbative language, they've come to see it from my point of view. And if you look at my demographics, my web presence has done nothing but grow since Elevator Gate, and PZ Myers and that group has done nothing but decline ever since.
And I should also, if I remember rightly, Myers had at least 2 goes to try and bury you. Yeah. And the first time, because you get the sort of thumbs up, thumbs down thing, so you can use this as sort of barometer to gauge someone's internet footprint.
I have 2 data points. The first one, when he linked to me because I put up a video, I got about 15,000 views, something like that, in the first 24 or 36 hours. A year later, he tried to send people to one of my videos to like massively thumb it down, and it caused a bump of almost 600 or 700. And I have a third data point, and it's when he inadvertently there used to be a phenomenon known as fringulation.
Okay.
He used to have a very large web presence. When he would link to something, if it was a small website, it would crash their servers. He can't do that anymore. That phenomenon is dead. And he linked to Black Hag, and she inadvertently reported the metrics that it caused 400 people to go to her site. And I'm like, yeah, this is...
So, someone enlightened me. How many people are watching this?
Oh, right now?
A couple thousand, I'd imagine.
4,000.
Yeah. So, anyway, in the space of a year, he was down about 1/12 of what he was the year before. And I'm not growing rapidly or anything. I'm a grower, not a shower, people. Don't judge. But steadily, slowly and surely, it's just been an increase for me. And I haven't changed my language. And this is how I talk in real life. If anyone meets me in real life, they'll be like, oh, he's just the same as he is on the internet, only bigger. I look smaller on your monitor, I'm sorry. But anyway, It's just that kind of nonsensical shit that he is so vociferous in his ideology that he'll look at a gay guy and say, "Look, faggot, the reason that you agree with him is so you can hit on bitches." And like, look, dude, you're fucking off the chain. And I do want to return to the point, maybe not now, but in a little bit, about the infantilization of people. But before that, I'll answer the question about the feedback that I get.
No, that's fine.
It is, I have gotten what would count in the Free Thought Blogs land as death threats. And indeed, I got a very detailed one about how the guy wanted to, or it happened to be a guy, wanted to watch me bleed to death as he shoved a knife inside me and whatnot. And after he sent that to me, I'd grown out of the phase where I would correct people's grammar and email back to them what they'd sent me with red lettering and everything, and I just sent him back a picture of my bring it, bitch. You know.
Well, and that's one thing. That's one thing too I wanted to touch on, because there are some names that popped up throughout this. In Gamergate there are too. The people that seem to keep popping back up. One of them is PZ Myers. Can either one of you kind of give some background information on who that is and the role they played, so people in chat that might not know this, or Gamergaters who are unfamiliar with it, have an idea of who he is?
Well,
Rebecca Watson's greatest fan, I think, would probably be the simplest way to describe it.
Is he or her biggest white knight? That kind of thing?
Absolutely.
And by
in fact,
just that he's vociferous. He's a prodigious man.
Is he now?
He's corpulent.
Well, he played a role throughout a lot of this. I seem to remember him starting quite a bit of drama a couple of times over the last 2 or 3 years.
Not so much well, a little bit. Right now there's one going on where he's accusing Michael Nugent, who is, depending on how cynical you are, the world's biggest pussy or the world's biggest assuager of people's feelings. He's accused Michael Nugent of providing a safe haven for harassers, misogynists, and rapists. And Mr. Michael Nugent is an extremely polite man, and it's hard. If you wanted to point to a sensitive person and say this is a model of sensitivity, he'd be that kind of poster child. And he's written for him a rather scathing response to PZ Myers about this, about how PZ Myers failed 5 times to justify a smear. Anyway, I'll tweet a link to it later. And it is hard to imagine calling someone like that, Michael Nugent, a person who defends rapists and misogynists and harassers, let alone trying to protect them. That is nonsensical.
And this was the allegation that Myers had leveled.
Yeah, this is happening right now. This is like a week or so old. One of the other nonsensical things,
which is again, I mean, this is just Gamergate all over. That you take a look at Brianna Wu's latest interview, where she's just going on about how it's all about sexists threatening women. Or you look at Sarkeesian's, one of her latest tweets about how Gamergate is basically a sexist temper tantrum of something or other. I mean, it's...
misogynistic hate group, yeah. They've got a lot of terms they love to throw out. So what was... so you have all this happen, and you've got this group of people behaving in this way. What was the pushback? Did people ignore it? Did you guys start to mock them? And how did you treat Atheism Plus once you were familiar with what exactly was going on? What was the approach that the atheist community took to try to just, even though it was dead on arrival, but just to try to make them shut up and stop being so stupid?
In many ways, Atheism Plus was the catalyst for all of this. Right, before then...
they ignored camp a little bit before then, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just wasn't paying that much attention. And as far as the way that I was playing it before this was I was aware of it, but I didn't see that the infighting was going to actually achieve anything. You know, it's the old house divided against itself cannot stand. If you're going to spend your time doing anything, focus on something that's useful, and so on and so forth. And all of the time, this was just growing and growing and growing. The professional whiners within the community, and they were, if you like, they were generating their meaning out of creating divisions within the movement. Right, that was basically their bread and butter. Very much like Sarkeesians, bread and butter comes from creating divisions within gamers. And
at least
sorry?
these people belong to the atheist community. They're actually atheists. Sarkeesian is a complete poser.
Yeah, that is one interesting difference. It seems that we have a lot of people that are involved right now, kind of peacocking out in front of mainstream media and drawing attention to themselves, who aren't gamers, who don't seem to like the medium at all. And I do think that would be weird, especially in the relation to Atheism Plus. If it had been just somebody walking in off the street and being like, you know what, I'm going to do this, and if you guys aren't with it, you're all horrible people. But
well, actually, there is one thing that they have in common, and that's all that they're essentially talentless wastes of skin. Well, that's not entirely true. With Sarkeesian, she's actually a fairly decent salesperson, so to speak. But
she's a very good huckster. Yeah, she's very good at.
Oh no, it's very polished. If you watch one interview from the next, it is like it's from rote.
No, I would disagree with that. You take a look at her XOXO talk. She's basically just reading it off the prompter, which is very inconveniently put down by her feet. So she really does look very awkward like that.
It was pretty awkward. She seemed to be extraordinarily nervous, even though she was at what seemed to be the epicenter of one of these kind of cults. You had the people in that audience seemed to really have drank the Kool-Aid at XOXO Fest.
And not only that, whiter than Congress, 90% male. I mean, it's the amount of projection here is incredible. That it's everyone else who is sexist now come, and Atheism Plus was exactly the same. We want inclusivity, we want gays and people of color and all this sort of shit. And you take a look at their clique conference, which is Skepticon. And again, it's whiter than Congress.
No, if you want to talk about crowd drawing, look at Sarkeesian's events versus when Black Hag did that talk about how to leverage social media.
Oh, that was hilarious. And so she ends up basically talking to an empty room. It really was quite literally, she was talking to an empty room on how to effectively use social media to promote a message. Right? So I guess this is the fundamental difference, is Sarkeesian's a far better snake oil salesman than any. The people that we had in Atheism Plus, they weren't good at anything, not even selling snake
bullshit.
Oil.
Well, Aristocrat, what was that video you put up a while back where you said the conference and these are the people who weren't there?
I'm gonna guess that's the. Are you talking about the more recent one, the Gamergate Part 1 video?
Yeah, it was one of those on Gamergate, and we pan out to the audience, and it's like mostly an empty room.
Oh, that was that actually was not XOXO Fest with Anita Sarkeesian. There was a gathering, Penny Arcade Expo, so PAX, and Zoe Quinn was going to give a speech. This is right as this information is coming out, and about 10 people showed up, and it was just a massive hall with all these chairs. And there was nobody in it. Just nobody showed up to listen to her talk about making a HTML version of Choose Your Own Adventure and call it a video game, a reading experience that wasn't really a game to set out with. But I think go ahead.
This is what really pisses me off, is these people seem to be laboring under the delusion that gaming should be an educational experience where you are in touch with everyone's emotions and all this sort of thing. And it's like, it's just bullshit. I play video games so I can be whatever God Slayer or the 7-foot-tall genetically engineered Spartan blowing away aliens with laser rifles. I don't want a game to educate me about depression because that's not why I play games. And
exactly. When I want to be educated on a subject, I go read academic literature.
You don't play video games called Depression Quest? Are you sure?
Yeah,
I thought that was the best resource.
If there were a video game about mathematics, I'm a mathematician for those of you who don't know, I wouldn't play it. For one, it would not be a fun game. That's a given. But two, It's not the media. It's like people on YouTube who put up videos where it's just text. A complete misapprehension of the medium.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with that. Well, I think another thing I wanted to touch on, kind of comparing, I guess, the Atheism Plus thing and then the Gamergate thing. It seems like, and Thunderfoot, you had talked about this a little bit. It seems like they're more interested. They're not interested in really coming into a community and either creating solutions or building it up or making it better. They want to come in and essentially attack the community itself. That's how they make their money.
I did a video on this. They show up under the guise of, look, we just want to be part of the group, which, fine, you want to be part of the group, just pull your weight. I don't ask for much. Same thing with women in combat arms. Look, if you can hump the rock, fine. If not, shut the fuck up. But they show up in the guise of, we just want to be friends, we want to, hang out with you people, and then you say, okay, fine, come on in. And then about 30 seconds later, they're like, I love everything about this place, except for the way it's decorated, the people you let in, the time of day that you're open. I love what you have going on here. Let's change every fucking detail about it to suit me.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's the me, and also trying to actually change gaming from an industry that makes games that are fun to play to games that don't offend anyone. And this is just like, from a financial point of view, this is just bloody crazy. It would be like saying, in the movie industry, we want to make fun movies, but we don't ever want to see anyone killed because that's nasty, and that means that someone's going to lose their life, and that's really not appropriate things for people to be watching. And they basically, the reason people go to movies, the reason people play games, the people watch music videos is because they're entertaining to watch. And a lot of that stems from, ironically, something that is so obvious that it's very easy to overlook, which is almost the diametric opposite point that Sarkeesian tries to make in her videos. She tries to say that all of these tropes are actually, destroying women and such like. And it's quite the opposite. The reason those tropes exist in the first place is because they are de facto successful storytelling cliches, memes, tropes. People do want the women in stories to be beautiful. People do want the men in stories to be strong and decisive and all this sort of thing. You don't ever see someone saying, well, what this story needs is a fat, ugly woman.
Right, that's exactly what it needs in the middle of it, yeah. Well, did you see, I guess, with the Atheism Plus thing, were they so far off track? Because the way that what's going on with Gamergate right now feels, do you think it would have reached a point where they would have gone after like core tenets of atheism, where they would have been like, hey, you know what, let's never attack a religion, let's never say we disagree, because we don't hurt their feelings.
There were atheists.
One of their conference policies said you weren't allowed to say anything that might offend people's religion, which is like, yeah.
Depending on the person, that could be something as strident as, I'm not persuaded your religion is correct, I'm not a member of it.
And this is the attitude they took, was we don't want to hurt feelings.
Yeah, one of their conference.
Yeah, well, by a lot of religions, dogma, to actually deny God means that you're going to send those people to hell. Therefore, anyone who advocates no religion is advocating the infinite torture of people for eternity. And that's as offensive as it comes. So,
yeah, I mean, like, if you just kill your neighbor, that's a finite act. But if there's an afterlife, and you kill them when they're like in a state of ungrace or whatever, that's an infinite punishment.
And you couldn't. They don't want you to bring this up. That's kind of what I find weird. What were they changing it into? What did they hope Atheism Plus was going to look like? Was it going to just be social activism, and they're just using atheism to try to push that?
Wait.
You're laboring under the fundamental misapprehension that these people are competent.
Yes. Also, let's not do them the credit of saying activism. That.
How about con job?
Slacktivism.
Slacktivism. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, there's an injustice in the world. Let me turn to Twitter and I'll solve it real fast.
Well, have they done anything? Did Atheism Plus accomplish anything? Did they have any stated goal and actually accomplish something without tripping over their own 2 feet?
I think one of their implicit goals was to provide an endless source of humor, and they've done wonderful jobs there.
Yeah, but unfortunately it didn't last that long because it was really dead on arrival.
Is it? Do they? Let me see if they're still up.
No, I think it's still there. It's just there are more moderators than posters.
It's reached that point, has it?
It really is a ghost town.
All in all, how long would you say this lasted from the very beginning where it started picking up momentum until where it just everybody's like, okay, they've fallen so flat on their face, there's nothing they're ever going to do?
So the natural frequency, as I think it was about 18 months from Elevator Gate to Atheism Plus. And from then it was Atheism Plus basically died on its feet. It went absolutely nowhere, and I can only hope that Gamergate takes the shortcut and one of these losers please just suggest that we have Gamer Plus. I mean, it would just be such a gift.
I would love if they came out and did that.
I mean, part of me wants to egg them into it. You know, it's like, well, why wouldn't you advocate for Gamer Plus? You know, don't you think that we ought to be Gamers Plus? We are against the discrimination against women. Don't you think that's a good thing? Why wouldn't you want that unless you want the sexist and the misogynist in gaming?
I'm at their site right now, and there are 3 registered users online, one of which is the Bing bot, the other is the Google bot, and then someone named Mocha.
Who died at their computer 3 years ago and just hasn't signed out yet.
Most users ever online was 136 on Monday, October 8th, 2012, which is, I think, the first month it was up.
Well, and I think another thing to raise...
Run the moment again. How many?
136.
And how many do we have watching this?
4,354.
There we go.
That gives you an idea.
It's quite a bit higher.
To give you an idea, I have one math video, a calculus video on an obscure topic that has more views than just about as many views as their entire website.
Really?
Yeah.
How many views for their entire website?
Well, oh God, I don't want to keep going back and giving them crap.
Bump up this
oh, come on! Have a sense of generosity.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, atheists. Oh, here's their manifesto. Atheism Plus is a safe space for people to discuss how religion affects everyone and to apply skepticism and critical thinking to everything, including social issues like sexism, racism, LGBT issues, politics, poverty, and crime. For more information, see our fag.
Oh, Jesus. Well, these people have kept going, though. I mean, that's one thing I think people in Gamergate probably are going to encounter. Even if this gets stopped and the corruption gets dealt with and these people get called on what they're doing, you still have people like, even after Atheism Plus, you still have PZ Myers, you still have Rebecca Watson running around. But do you think the damage done to them from the horse and pony show that they put on is pretty much permanent?
Oh, right. PZ can't recover from this.
Sorry?
PZ, no, I don't think that they can. They would have to really pull a rabbit out of the hat to recover from this.
So that I would mostly agree with is that they capitally backed the wrong horse on this one. Which is an irony, seeing as they're at a site called Free Thought blog. Where you, as long as you agree with us, you can have as many free thoughts as you want.
Yeah, it seemed to be quite a bit of groupthink. It kind of is a social justice warrior mentality. If you either agree with us or you're horrible, and it has to be 100%. It can't be a degree. You can't vary a little bit from anything.
Yeah, but this, for me, Rebecca Watson really does seem to be more or less finished in this, and she never really brought anything to the forum anyway. right? The thing that she brought to the forum is she took her clothes off for a calendar once and elevator gate. That's almost her entire resume here, right? So when you're looking at, what are the achievements, what has she ever done? It's pretty thin. You take a look at people like Sarkeesian, and again, it's really pretty thin. You take a look at her background traffic, and she gets big spikes for her videos, and I've never really understood quite how she manages that, but she does anyway. And then it drops off to really a quite a low background. That her videos are not what you would call long tail.
Right. I think I'd speculate the reason Sarkeesian gets a traffic bump is it has to do with the journalist collusion stuff. They want to push out that narrative. So every time a video of hers comes out, it gets linked 14 times in every article they write about it. Like, here's Anita's new video, here's Anita's new video, here's Anita's new video, or there's some new threat or some horrible thing that's happened, and we need to obviously go watch it to make sure that we don't turn into horrible sexist mass killers.
But this is the thing. That when she actually goes and gives her talks, they seem to be very much of a muchness about basically how hard it is to be Anita Sarkeesian. And that I see as having a very limited shelf life. That, if how many times can you actually deliver the same talk? Here's me giving my TED talk, whatever it is, 4 years. I forget how many years ago it is now. And now here she is 4 years later giving basically exactly the same talk. Here's some people who said nasty things about me on Twitter. I mean, how long is it before your brand image essentially becomes the professional victim? Because that's essentially what happened with Rebecca Watson. Now, she was completely incompetent when it comes to actually putting a civilized face on this, which is why, when she puts up this video basically saying all men all UT male atheists are dicks, or they have to call women cunts at least with a certain frequency, otherwise they become manginas. And these things are so universally and grotesquely offensive, especially when you put them at the beginning of a charity video. That sort of thing does become your brand image. Sarkeesian is at least smart enough to keep her mouth shut on matters like that, but it still is that her core message is that of a professional victim. That's what gets her the majority of her traffic. It seems to me that, when you take a look at how much traffic she gets for the, tropes versus women, they pull in a lot of traffic, but I would estimate that she gets an order of magnitude more, and certainly when it comes to donations, probably an order of magnitude more when she's the professional victim versus when she is, if you like, doing what she's actually meant to be doing, which is linking why these sexy women in video games is actually making society sexist. Which, of course, the whole premise of her video series is bullshit, but she gets a shitload more traffic for when she's actually the professional victim.
Right. They make themselves the They make themselves the story. That's the con. It's not what I'm talking about. It's me. It's totally me. Everybody look at me. I need money. Give me attention. Look how oppressed I am. Me, 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 me.
Absolutely. And you need no better example than, Sarkeesian was basically just, she puts out her latest tropes versus women, basically drops off the radar. If you actually sort of follow the statistics on her site, that's very much the way that it looks. And then she does this thing where she cancels her talk for reasons that are at best highly dubious. And she gets this massive bump from it.
Well, I was going to ask...
And to people who are not like you or me or anyone here, to people who have not kept up to speed with this, and all they see is the mainstream media presentation, then what sort of opinion are you going to form about Gamergate if that's all you've seen about it?
Yeah, that's very true. This was something I forgot to bring up. People are bringing it up in chat. They wanted to have you guys talk about or comment on Matt Dillahunty, if I'm saying his name right.
I
Where
believe it's
he
pronounced Dillahunty.
is that wasn't the story that he had tried to prove there wasn't censorship and ended up getting censored?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that one's hilarious.
Yeah, I was. he decided because he was a big enough name that he would make a sobriquet and go in under that and show that everything on Atheism Plus is on the up and up, and if you go in there and you say reasonable things, you'll be treated reasonably. So he made the username Curious, and this lasted a couple of exchanges before he finally said, "Look, essentially, look, motherfuckers, I'm Matt Dillahunty." And someone responded to that by saying, "Oh yeah, sure you are." And so then he gets on under his real name to prove that it's Matt Dillahunty, and they ban him.
So that didn't turn out too well for him with his theory that no, they're not.
I don't think you got the sequence on that quite right. I think the way that it worked is they banned him, and then they said he was Matt Dillahunty, and then they banned his second account, which he'd made under his real name.
No, he was curious. He said that he was Matt. He said, "This is Matt. You should know who you're talking to. This is Matt Dillahunty." And they're like, "Yeah, right. Sure you are."
Okay.
It was like when geneticist Don Kane left a comment on P.Z. Meyer's blog on Fringula, and he was talking about essentially the phenotype being the visible features of an animal. It's to include its behaviors, and why it is that women are more drawn to going to the churches than men are. And he said it was something about the phenotype, and that they were, P.Z. Meyer's blog, idiot commenters are responding, oh, the phenotype doesn't deal with the behaviors that you see of an animal, essentially things of that nature. And he responded, goes, oh, I forgot to mention, I'm actually a geneticist. We just call this the wild type. And he goes on a little bit, and then they come back and like, oh, those big words, and you think you're so smart, you can't get away with showing up to a biologist's website and pretending that you know genetics. And another person said, I want Don Kane out of the genetics boat now. And it took P.Z. Myers a couple of days before he finally responded by saying, yes, Don Kane is actually a professional geneticist. He's a damn good one. He's a friend of mine. And his use of the word phenotype was perfectly correct. It took him days before he could muster up the balls to discipline his what he calls his horde.
Well, what was Dillahunty's response to this? So he comes out and says, I'm really who I am. They don't buy into it. Does he still defend them? Does he say, oh my God, they're wrong?
No, he that minor incident notwithstanding, he was still like, Atheism Plus is 3 bags full, rah rah rah, it's a great thing, social justice, that kind of shit. And I was talking with him, and I said, what I think an honest person would say here is when they try to do a blind experiment and they get the contrary result that they expected, a result that's consistent with my proposition, that they would say, you guys have a point, but he couldn't do that.
So he just had to keep backing them.
So a lot of them actually go into, they try and defend it by saying that feminism is just for the equal treatment for women. That's all that it means.
Yes.
And for me, and I think for everyone else, we're a hell of a lot more pragmatic than that, that you actually deal with populations based on the sort of spokespeople and the behavior of those populations. And when these people have both financially and by popularity elected people like Rebecca Watson, Amanda Marcotte, Brenna Wu, Zoe Quinn, Anita Sarkeesian, when these are the de facto spokespeople for feminism, I think it's reasonable to say that they're fucking nuts. And to actually sort of portray this as all these people want is for women to be treated as people is just bollocks. I mean, that's just a weak ass cop out.
No, one of the rhetorical tricks that they like to pull is if you have some position that has, say, 5 propositions in it, 4 of them are reasonable. Women are people, black should be treated equal with whites, blah blah blah, and then proposition number 5 is something like, and we should exterminate the Jews. And so you say, well, whatever that movement is, here it's feminism we're talking about, but it could be anything. And you say, well, I'm not on board with that movement. I'm not on board with that label. What they'll say is, oh, so you have an issue with proposition number 1. So to translate that into real terms, some guy called into the Atheist Experience, Matt Dillahunty's TV show, and he said, well, I'm not a feminist. And the response was, oh, so you don't agree that women are people. As though that is the only proposition that exists within feminism. It isn't. That proposition is unobjectionable by everyone. I've never met a person who thinks that women belong to some other species. I've never met a person who doesn't think women are fully human in all respects. But then you have propositions that deal with things like the patriarchy, curiarchy, and things of intersectionality, and all these other propositions that get built into it. And it's perfectly acceptable for a person to say, look, I agree with propositions 1 and 2, but I don't agree with propositions 3, 4, 5, and 6, and therefore I'm not taking the label. But their response will be that you disagree with what they want to pretend is the only extant proposition, which is what Thunderfoot just said, only in a more wordy and erudite.
Well, and I think that's what we saw on with Gamergate, especially with the hashtag that kind of popped up alongside it, "Not Your Shield," was people that got sick of listening to that kind of argumentation where the only reason you're against what we're saying about the gaming community is because you hate minorities, you hate women, you hate gay people, you hate transsexuals.
Yeah.
And they got so sick of listening to that deflection. And so did, again, I mean, gaming is made up of anybody can play a game. There's nothing prohibitive about it. Anybody of any type, any ideology, any race, any sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. It's a fucking game.
Blind people can't play Zoe Quinn's game.
That's very. She needs to check her privilege. That's true. That's very ableist.
Yeah, absolutely. She created a game that consciously discriminates against blind people.
That might be.
I didn't see that coming myself.
No, it was very horrible that she did that. I mean, maybe that's why they're depressed. They're blind, and now her game can't help them because she's an ableist person. So it's a horribly vicious cycle of nobody being able to get treated.
Look, there's not anyone who can't play this oppression Olympics game. And like I say to feminists when they tell me that because I'm white and I'm not obviously gay to some people, they'll say things, and I'm like, look, I've done more for gay. When was the last time you sucked a gay man's dick, huh? Fuck you.
Get out there.
I don't do anything for gay men, honey. I do.
Well, and that is kind of the mentality too. I've seen it in Gamergate. I saw it in Atheism Plus. Even when Occupy Wall Street kind of got co-opted in other groups. It's an Olympic event of who can be the most oppressed.
They'll respond by saying that I'm pretending to be gay because it's so fashionable or something.
Or you're a bot. Or sock puppet.
Yeah, I'm not gay enough. I'm like, I can go all the way down. I mean, how gay do I have to be? I didn't realize it came in degrees, but okay. Yeah, you made a video where you're saying that people, and by the way, if you want to talk about the Oppression Olympics, go to like some of these campus meetings for gay people.
Actually, whilst we mention Oppression Olympics, we got to at least put out the shout out for the Shoe on Head video for the.
Oh God, she's awesome.
Yeah, that was really good.
It was awesome.
Yeah, Shoe on Head's video was great.
Did you see her last video?
The one with the traffic cone.
Yes, she's got the road.
Yeah. So there's the people getting all irate about rape in video games, which, if you think about it, is just so surreal that you're getting worried about rape in video games when the core objective of many of these video games is to kill as many people as quickly as possible.
But you don't understand.
And that doesn't bother you, but the fact that someone's modded some characters to air hump things, this is terrible.
You don't understand that rape is actually worse than murder to these people. And by rape, of course, they don't mean just what you think of when you think of rape, which I resent, and I'll talk about that in a second. But the videos, people air humping, and the person doing the article said this is a realistic representation of rape, and it's got like a traffic cone floating over the person's head. So she puts this traffic cone on her head. She starts bouncing around in her backyard. You think that's you want to talk about how long and well the termites have died? in 19 in
Quoting Hitchens and win.
Say what?
You see how far the termites have eaten and how deep and how well they've dined. It's a quote from Hitchens, but he might have got it from somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah, well, actually, a lot of his best phrases he clipped from elsewhere. But anyway, in the mid '90s, the Congress passed a law and President Clinton signed it, and the case where you can listen to this law being litigated in the Supreme Court is it's Ashcroft against Free Speech Coalition, and the Solicitor General, a very conservative man, Paul Clement, George Bush's Solicitor General, actually argued that all Congress did was extend the extant definition of child pornography to include new kinds of child pornography that involved no children and no pornography. It was virtual child pornography. This is shit that is taken. This is one of the reasons I oppose feminists every chance I get. They actually do have some influence. They can get a law like that passed where a person can sit around and create on a computer representations of people doing things that you don't want people doing, and claim that that's just as bad as actually raping children and videotaping it.
Because there's no distinction. I've noticed with a lot of SJW rhetoric that everything is taken to the extreme. That an offense is 100 times worse through their eyes. It's not just a normal person would define rape, with pretty clear terms, illegal terms, or they have a moral definition, but they understand what it is. But when you talk to an SJW, it starts to include things like stare rape, and not asking consent to look at somebody, or accidentally bumping into somebody walking down a hallway. Like, it can be all these things, micro trigger transgressions and all this crazy shit.
Microaggressions.
Now, I've got to share something with you on the microaggressions thing, because us men have been suffering from that sort of microaggressions for years. It's called nagging.
Is that what you put forward?
There's a joke about that. This guy goes in to get a divorce, and he's talking to his divorce. This is in the South. He's talking to his divorce lawyer, and he wants to get a divorce from his wife. And the lawyer's like, "Was she a nagger?" And he says, "No, but the guy she's fucking is." But by the way, have you heard you're from the UK, so maybe you're familiar with this. The recent proposal in the House of Commons for there to be separate train cars for women.
That's something that was put forward, really?
Yeah. And I thought, actually, guys, you should get on board with this. You could label like one naggers only, and.
Well, it's like the Japanese transit system where they've got their own car set aside.
You could put the women's trains leaving 15 minutes later, so they have extra time to dawdle around in the bathroom or whatever they do. And you can ride.
Did anyone see Sarkeesian's famous first Bayonetta video?
Yes, where she completely got everything wrong.
And not only did she get completely everything wrong, she also suggests that harassment in America is so bad that you need women-only cars following such wonderfully progressive countries, and I shit you not, she lists Egypt there.
Are you serious?
I'm not serious. You take a look at it. She suggests Egypt as a progressive country that is taking women's rights seriously by going down the route of segregation.
It's just insane.
Well, not only that. I mean, can you imagine if the black people are so oppressed in America that we need to give them their own part of the bus.
This is like the reverse of Rosa Parks. I will not ride with those white folks.
Yeah, the harassment of black people has gotten so bad that they need their own part of the bus.
I'm just waiting for her to jump up on a table and scream, "Union!"
Well, you bring that up, but that Penny Arcade Expo had talked about setting up a diversity lounge, because this is so weird. They preach one thing, but their rhetoric always leads back to things we've already seen, like segregation laws and prohibitive speech. So PAX had said, it's really hard if you're a minority or if you're gay to go to a gaming event. So we're going to they created a separate room called the Diversity Lounge, where different people who weren't, white straight males playing games could hang out and feel safe. So they gave them their own back of the bus. What's that?
Just look
White
back
folks,
on the.
they all look alike. You're all the same.
That's very true. No,
I mean, if
it's,
you're
it's
a
terrible.
white male, obviously, like me, you want some pussy.
Yeah, obviously you're going to harass everybody at an event because you can't control yourself. So we have to set up segregated areas, diversity lounges, to protect people.
You
It's
don't call
just
it segregated. That sounds a little racist.
too true. Yeah, it sounds too accurate. Is why they don't like to call it. So that's why it's the diversity lounge instead of the segregated room.
Yeah,
But
there's a diversity center at my campus, and I'm like, I walk in there, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is diverse. Look at all these white people on the computer.
jeez. Well, yeah. Thanks for both of you coming out to do this. I appreciate you coming out to do the stream. Like I said, I wanted to talk about kind of Atheism Plus, and I wanted to give GamerGators, I guess, an idea that this has happened before, and these people are amateurish and they will boggle it up, and that's what we've seen with the gaming press. They're just really arrogant and stupid, and they continually shoot themselves in the foot. And I thought it was kind of good to see that that happened once before, and that they fell flat on their asses doing it, which is kind of, inspiring.
And,
Dealing with this.
and just like with Occupy as well, they infected Occupy.
Watch Mikeru's video on that. It's actually a good video.
Yeah, if you can give me a link, I'll put that in the description too of the video so people can check that out. Because I think that would be good for them to watch as well to kind of get an idea of what happened there.
Yeah, and I would like to, just say thank you for giving me a platform where I could finally come out.
Oh yeah, hey, it's safe space, right? We don't want to be too problematic for you. Wanted to protect you from anybody who's going to say mean things.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm a big pussy. But on the note of language and whatnot, these people do shoot themselves in the foot. But the thing that works for them is they stay on their message, and eventually, if you hear it enough times, it becomes familiar and comfortable. And these people, not necessarily the Gamergate people, but feminism writ large, they do have some influence, and they can get stupid laws passed that get people put in prison. So it's important that you pay attention to this and listen to the link when they talk about rape. And I resent that I have to do this now, rape, child porn, whatever you want to call it, pick a topic. That when someone says that, for instance, if I were to learn that a person moving in next to me were a sex offender, what I would want to think of is, oh, this person has raped someone. But now I'm in the awkward position of having to ask, when you say sex offender, do you mean sex offender or sex offender? And I resent that I have to do that. And that's one of the problems that attends this type of social justice warriorship. It is the bastardization of the language such that terms that should be strong and should have very finite, crystallized, unambiguous meanings no longer do.
Yeah, and like the watering down of rape to basically mean I had remorseful drunken sex.
I've been raped thousands of times.
Yeah, I know, and for me too.
I think for their work,
it was wonderful every time. I wish it happened to me more often.
I have to ask, Mr. Aristocrat, how old is your cock, and what's this notion about the... I was offended that some people asked me about, you were giving me a pearl necklace as though I don't swallow. That is offensive, motherfuckers.
They need to check that privilege. Yeah, I still haven't heard the end of that. I'm a very naive, innocent person, and so when I thought I was describing a piece of jewelry, apparently it's a slang term for something else, and so I promised Milo a pearl necklace, and now they're insistent that I deliver that with my, mysteriously aged dick. So
wrong.
My ambiguously aged dick.
But let me just add one brief thing here. That following up on what Justica was saying, I think it's actually really important that you do tackle this stuff, and a lot of it goes back to this. It's almost a tautology, but you get the society you deserve. You live in the society that you deserve. If you don't actually do anything, nothing will change, or even worse, that these parasites that you've been infected with will just grow. If they are left unopposed, then there's only one place that this can go to, and that's that it's going to get worse. Now, it's my big hope that when you take a look at Gamergate so far, Sarkeesian has played the game, I think, well. The central core of her entire video series is bullshit, but she plays the victim on point and she does it well. If you take a look at the others, you take a look at Zoe Quinn. She's an idiot. She's like Watson, and the same with Brianna Wu as well. Is that I don't see these people have a long shelf life.
No, I'd agree with that, and I think that's it's a good place to end it. Yeah, I mean, I've said it before at the start of this, and I think other people share the sentiment that it may to some people just be games journalism, but it's a touchstone for a larger issue. And if you can't deal with corruption, if you can't deal with this kind of influence at a small level, I don't know how you expect to affect it on a larger level and in more meaningful ways. So if you can't clean up games journalism, it's going to be hard to say, let's go clean up banking and the government and mainstream media.
Yes,
and this is a point that I've made to my colleagues who will frequently actually sort of say, "Why are you actually wasting your time with this?" And the answer has to be that you take a look at how many times this has repeated itself. My reckoning is this is the third time that an organization has been infected with this sort of social justice warrior bullshit. And it's taken what was essentially a cohesive and relatively functioning community and utterly destroyed it. That's basically what it did with atheism. That's what it did with Occupy. And now just look at the mess that it's made of the gaming community. And this is real consequences. I mean, you had this in one of your videos, Aristocrat, that there was some games developer who they've now become almost fearful that they're going to offend someone's other kin or some shit like this, and they've now got to, previously all they had to worry about was making it a good game that people enjoyed, good game with good artwork. Now it's a fucking minefield for them.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's screwed with the industry, and it's screwed with the the readership and the consumer base.
I know you're trying to get us off.
I've got one last important thing.
I'm trying to save you from something that you inadvertently have stepped in that you didn't realize. When you said you get the society that you deserve, I'll add the caveat in there for you for social justice warriors. He does not mean that people in North Korea deserve to be oppressed. He means when you live in a free, open society.
Good point. Yeah.
Very good.
In a democracy. But of talking about financial consequences, because unlike atheism and whatever Occupy, there is actually an industry here, gaming industry, which is multi-billion-dollar industry, yada yada yada. How many sponsors have pulled away? I know that Intel walked away. Who else has done that?
Scottrade, Unilever, Intel, UAT. That's I think the University of Advanced Technology, and then just recently Mercedes-Benz.
Fuck yeah.
That's a hell of a lot of advertisers to walk away. Not small ones either. Intel and Mercedes are pretty big.
Intel, yeah, and the pharma. What was the pharma company you had?
No, the ones so far were Scottrade, Unilever, UAT, Intel.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
I just put a link to that Mike Rue video on Occupy.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks again, guys, for coming out. For everybody who's watched and wants to check these guys out, I have their info in the description. Thunderfoot, Justicar, I appreciate you giving me a couple hours of your time here to kind of talk about this.
Thanks for having us on. It's been great.
No,
yeah,
it's
a
been
good
great
time.
fun, and thank you. And just to let everyone know, I will be investigating the age of his dick, and I'll let you know when I have some information.
That's some investigative reporting you'll never see in games journalism. See, that's the get up and go gumption that you need to have to be a good reporter.
Take it for the team.
All right, Stream. Well, you guys have a good night, and again, thanks, guys, for coming out.